Hey everybody, QiWiz here, and I just wanted to reintroduce the Firefly Stove with a couple of improvements made recently. Okay, so let's look at the Firefly Stove. First thing I want to do is just show you how thin it is when it packs up into a very flat package, not even a ½ an inch thick. And this can go into your 8mm Ziploc that comes with it for no extra charge. Or, if you want, you can get my Tyvek pouch. This is optional. Has a fiberglass mesh inside, so that really lets it be more durable over time with the Firefly inside. But let's look at the stove in more detail. First thing I want to show you is that it's in 4 parts with a stainless steel mesh bottom. And 3 of the sides are identical, and one side has this flex port which opens and closes a large opening. The flex port has a little titanium keeper, and it has a stainless steel rivet here. But the sides of the stove are titanium, stainless steel mesh bottom, so really nothing that can rust. I'll also point out, I don't know if this will show well on camera, but I've added a crease to the stove at the top, which just results in a little bit more strength without any extra weight at all. So the stove goes together just with a tab and slot mechanism. So you can just put the sides in any order, doesn't matter. And once you get all 4 of them together, then you just want to flex it slightly and make the last connection. At this point, you can see the stove can still move around, but once you put the stainless steel mesh in, that firms everything up. So the way to do that is to put it in at a little bit of an angle and then push it down. And once you've done that, the whole thing is very tight, very snug, and you can move it around and it's just fine. Now the stove is designed to work with lots of different pots like you see here. This would be a small pot, 750 tokes. Same diameter as a 550 tokes, which is very popular. I tend to like a little bit larger pot. This is a 900cc Evernew. This is the pot that I use with the Firefly. And I'll point out that I think a great idea is to have a dedicated pot, because you will get a little bit of dry soot on it. And then I use a DIY Reflectix pot cozy to both keep my food warm after I've heated everything up, and also to protect anything in my pack from getting any soot on it. So that works really well. You can even use something as big as this 1.3 liter Evernew without any problem. It'll work fine. Anything really up to about 6 inches wide works well with the stove with no modifications. But let's say that you like a really narrow pot. Like this is a Foster's beer can pot, and it can go on there, but it's really tippy. So if you're going to do that, I would get a pair of these optional narrow light pot supports. And what they do is they go across the stove at pretty much the same level as the regular pot supports do. And they just provide a nice stable spot for a narrow pot like that. The other thing you can do with these pot supports is support a cooking grill. And this is another option. And so if you have the grill there, now you can grill a steak, you can grill some burgers, something on skewers, and the grill works very nicely for that. But let's say you have something that's a really wide pot or pan. Like one of the things I like is this Banks Fry Bake Pan. So I don't know if you've ever seen one of these, but it's 8 inches wide, has a lid, and you basically make a twig fire on top and have a heat source below, and that will allow you to bake something fairly big. Pizza, a whole Jiffy corn muffin mix. Anyway, for something that wide, you really need to bring your pot up a little higher to give you more room to feed the fire and to give the fire more room to breathe. So I do make these wide, heavy pot supports, and they go in the actual tops of the pot supports, and they go across and make an X, like so. And that way, something like this Banks fry pan will be elevated another inch, and you have more room to feed it, more room for the fire to breathe. But probably the most famous aspect of the Firefly is this flex port. So the flex port can be kept closed if you want a hot chimney fire using the draft through the bottom of the stove coming up through like a little mini blast furnace to heat up your water. But if you're doing something more elaborate where you want to control fire temperature, the flex port is great. So you can open it up a little bit. I generally will open it up all the way, like is shown here too. And this lets you move sticks in and out. It lets you feed the fire more easily, but it also lets you control temperature. So for example, you'd have a little piece of aluminum foil off to the side, and if the fire got too hot for what you were doing, you just take a stick out and put it down. On the other hand, as the sticks burn, you can knock the ends off and advance them some more. So the flex port is very useful both to make fire feeding easier as far as the fuel, but also to control fire temperature. A final option in that regard is a titanium insert, which goes in the bottom of the stove. And if you have good quality dry wood and things are burning too quickly, or you know they will, and you want to have a lower temperature fire, then the bottom ventilation will get reduced by that insert, and that might be something that you would decide you'd like to get. The final thing I want to show you is we do have a multi-fuel option, and that is used if you're burning alcohol or Esbit and you want to just have a backup for your wood burning for situations. So the way that's done is you use the Firefly as part of a wind screen, essentially. And then you would have your pot stand, and you'd have your pot there, and then you'd have an extra piece I call a windshield, which would go on the windward side, and you would put that into the wind. So that would be how you would sort of snug things up and then put the windshield on to use as a multi-fuel option. And I have a whole page that describes that in more detail. So I hope that's helpful to you. And if you've never tried a little wood-burning twig fire, I would go ahead and think about that seriously, because you've got no fuel weight, and it's a lot of fun, and you improve your fire skills along the way. So take care and have some great cooking next time you're on trail.